Picture this. The air in the room suddenly grows heavy, thick with an unspoken tension. You hear the rhythmic tap, tap, tap of fingers against the table. Across from you sits someone wearing a faint, almost imperceptible smirk. Then come the words. Sharp, precise criticisms, carefully disguised beneath the polite veneer of just giving you some constructive feedback. Instantly, you feel the physical shift. Your chest tightens. Your heart starts hammering against your ribs, and a familiar, suffocating lump forms in your throat. Every single fiber of your being is screaming at you to react, to defend your boundaries, to prove them wrong at any cost. Tell me, have you ever walked away from a moment just like this, feeling completely and utterly drained, your mind entirely blank after a mere 5-minute conversation with someone you know all too well? We are often taught that when someone attacks our character or crosses our line, we must stand our ground. We fall into the illusion that if we just explain ourselves clearly, if we just lay out the facts and use pure logic, the other person will eventually see reason. We truly believe that arguing back and proving them wrong is the only way to protect our boundaries. But here is the hard truth. You are not dealing with a simple communication error. When you are facing someone entirely consumed by defensive instincts or negative emotions, bringing logic to the table is like trying to put out a roaring house fire with a bucket of gasoline. Their brain is simply not processing facts right now. It is processing threats. The core issue in these exhausting clashes is rarely about who is objectively right and who is wrong. It is a violent collision of two completely different psychological states. You are trying to have a rational debate, while they are fighting an emotional survival war. As long as you view this interaction as a battlefield where you must secure a victory, you will always walk away drained. To finally let go of that burning desire to argue back, we have to change our lens. We must stop seeing them as an enemy intentionally plotting to hurt us, and start looking deeper into the invisible context that forged their aggression in the first place. Think about the person who constantly drains your energy. Beneath that harsh exterior, beneath the sharp words and the impossible demands, there is a hidden history. Nobody is simply born difficult. We do not enter this world pre-programmed to manipulate, to relentlessly criticize, or to exhaust the people around us. To truly understand their aggression, we have to travel back in time. We have to look at the environment that originally shaped them. For many of these individuals, their current behavior is actually a deeply ingrained survival mechanism. Imagine growing up in a chaotic household, where your feelings were consistently ignored or invalidated. Or perhaps an environment where love and attention were strictly conditional, handed out only when you fought bitterly for them. In those critical formative years, a child learns very quickly how to adapt to survive. Some children learn that the only way to be seen is to be the absolute loudest in the room. Some learn that if they do not micromanage and control every tiny detail of their surroundings, they will be swallowed by terrifying unpredictability, creating conflict, dominating conversations, or aggressively playing the victim. These were not character flaws back then. They were necessary tools. They were the only strategies that frightened child had to guarantee their own emotional survival. Fast forward to the present day. That child is now an adult sitting right across from you. But their internal programming has never been updated. When you look closely at a difficult person, what you are really seeing is a panicked child trapped inside a grown body. Their prickly defensive attitude is a heavy armor, forged from years of unnamed traumas and profound, unspoken insecurities. Their desperate need to win an argument is simply a distorted echo of their childhood need to be validated. Once you realize this profound truth, the dynamic completely shifts. You stop taking their harsh words so personally. So, if their aggression is deeply rooted in their past, why are they attacking you right here, right now? And more importantly, why does it leave you feeling completely emptied out? To answer this, we need to look at three powerful psychological forces silently operating beneath the surface of every painful argument. First, let us examine the phenomenon of psychological projection. Imagine the human mind as a movie projector. Sometimes a person carries internal insecurities, deep shames, or character flaws that their own ego simply cannot tolerate. The pain of admitting, "I am inadequate," or "I am entirely at fault," is just too much to bear. So, their subconscious performs a desperate magic trick. It completely denies these traits exist within themselves, and instead, unconsciously throws them onto you. When a difficult person suddenly accuses you of being controlling, unreasonable, or impossible to talk to, take a deep breath and step back. Listen to their exact words. More often than not, they are not describing you at all. They are handing you a perfect, unfiltered confession of their own internal state. They are using you as a mirror, shouting at their own reflection because it is much safer than facing themselves. But this leads us to the second force. If they are just projecting, why do they relentlessly push your buttons until you finally snap? This brings us to what psychologists call emotional supply. Remember that wounded, panicked child we discussed earlier? That inner child carries a vast, terrifying emotional void. To numb the crushing weight of that emptiness, they desperately seek a reaction from the outside world to prove they still matter, to prove they still have an impact. We often misinterpret their provocation as pure, calculated malice. But through the lens of empathy, we see something tragically different. We see a desperate attempt to borrow your energy to stabilize their own. When you finally get frustrated, when your voice trembles with anger, or when you exhaust yourself trying to justify your actions, you are doing exactly what their panicked ego wants. You are providing the emotional fuel they are starving for. Your distress momentarily soothes their chaos. It gives them a fleeting, addictive illusion of control. But while they are absorbing your energy, what exactly is happening to you? Why do you feel like you just ran a marathon? This is the third force, emotional contagion. And this is not just psychology. This is pure neurobiology. Human beings are highly social creatures, biologically wired to absorb and mirror the emotional states of those around us. Under normal circumstances, this creates empathy and deep connection. But when you are trapped in a room with a highly toxic, dysregulated person, this beautiful biological wiring becomes a severe vulnerability. Their intense hostility literally hacks your nervous system. As you absorb their chaotic energy, your brain's alarm center, the amygdala, detects a profound physical threat. Your body instantly plunges into a primitive fight or flight state. Your heart races, adrenaline floods your veins, and your energy reserves are rapidly burned away. And when a civilized modern adult is pushed into a corner and feels deeply threatened, what is our strongest, most instinctual weapon of self-defense? It is our logic. It is our intellect. The moment your brain's alarm bells go off, you desperately reach for rational arguments. You gather your facts, your evidence, and your clearest reasoning, truly believing that if you can just build a perfect logical case, you can neutralize the threat and make them stop. And here lies the ultimate psychological paradox. You stand there, presenting your perfectly crafted, undeniable logic. You expect them to pause, process the information, and finally realize they are wrong. But instead, they explode. Why does this happen? Because to a highly dysregulated person, your calm, undeniable logic is not a helpful solution. It is a massive, terrifying threat to their deeply fragile reality. If they accept your facts, their entire defensive armor shatters. That panicked inner child would have to face the overwhelming shame and emptiness they are so desperately trying to outrun. Therefore, the more undeniable your evidence becomes, the more wildly irrational and vicious their counterattacks will be. They will suddenly twist your words. They will bring up completely unrelated events from 5 years ago. Or they will completely abandon the topic and attack your tone of voice. But let us imagine a different scenario. Let us say you actually manage to corner them. You present an argument so flawless, so heavily backed by facts, that they are forced into silence. You technically win the battle. But what is the actual cost of this victory? In psychology, there is a concept known as ego depletion. Our willpower and our ability to regulate emotions draw from a very limited, finite well of energy inside our brain. By standing in that storm, forcing yourself to stay rational while absorbing their intense toxicity, you have completely drained your own well dry. Even if you win the argument, you are the one who will walk away with a pounding headache. You are the one who will lie awake at 2 a.m, staring at the ceiling, replaying the entire conversation on an endless, agonizing loop. You won the debate, but they walked away with your peace. The emotional price tag of this victory is simply too high. So, what do? If the cost of winning an argument is our own mental exhaustion, and we cannot simply walk away because this person is a boss, a parent, or a coworker, how do we survive? Enter a powerful psychological tool known as the gray rock method. But listen carefully. This is not about giving them the silent treatment. It is not about rolling your eyes, being passive-aggressive, or acting intellectually superior. Doing those things will only pour more gasoline on their fire. To gray rock, someone means to become the most uninteresting, unresponsive, and emotionally flat object in the room. You are polite, but you are incredibly boring. Your answers become short. Yes, no, I understand. You stick strictly to the bare facts. Your tone of voice remains completely neutral. Remember the emotional supply we talked about earlier? They are starving for your reaction. When you become a gray rock, you completely shut off that valve. Think of their anger as a violent, swirling storm. A person who reacts is like a fragile autumn leaf, instantly swept up, tossed around, and torn apart by the chaotic winds. But a person who observes, a person who chooses to be a gray rock, is like a massive stone mountain. You stand firmly rooted in your own calm reality. You allow the storm to scream and rage around you, knowing that eventually it will run out of energy and die out, simply because you gave it absolutely nothing to destroy. It is time we redefine what it means to win. For so long, we have been told that silence in the face of conflict is a sign of weakness. We have been conditioned to believe that walking away simply means we have surrendered. But when you finally understand the wounded inner world of a difficult person and the heavy toll that emotional contagion takes on your own mind, you realize the exact opposite is true. Choosing not to argue is never a surrender. It is the ultimate act of self-control. It is drawing a powerful, invisible boundary around your own mental health and fiercely protecting your inner peace. So, the next time you find yourself standing in front of someone hurling unreasonable judgments, desperate for your reaction, ask yourself this: will you choose to be a fragile branch, fighting endlessly until you snap under the weight of their gale? Or will you choose to be a vast, still lake, simply refusing to create ripples when they throw their heavy stones into your waters? True power does not always roar. The profound origin of your peace, sometimes, is simply a quiet nod, a gentle breath, and the beautiful choice of silence.